you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the fall!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TB. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
It is going to be sick. Welcome, Marinaro, on this Monday, January 22nd. It is 1 minute past 10 o'clock, and we have a dandy lined up for you today because, of course, joining us tonight on the Sick Podcast is going to be Eric Engels from Sportsnet and Sportsnet.ca and former NHLer George Laraque of BPM Sport. He'll join us probably in about 30 minutes' time. Eric Engels to join us in a couple of minutes. The Sick Podcast, of course, brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, recently named by Deloitte and CIBC as one of Canada's best managed companies, the country's leading business award recognizing innovative and world-class companies. Of course, I'm talking about Energy Transportation Group. You check them out. They are absolutely amazing. Also brought to you in part by, by the way, I'm not finished yet because the best managed Canadian companies designation fuels Energy's purpose of creating progress for their customers, their employees, and their communities. I just wanted you to know that. Join a winning team and check out Energy's career page for available opportunities. Actually, as a matter of fact, I also saw it on LinkedIn earlier today. Over the last couple of days, they put a couple of posts up. They are hiring here in Montreal and also in, I think it's Chattanooga, that branch over there. Energy Transportation Group. Also brought to you in part by these guys here, La Bitte TB, brewed in Quebec, a winner of a dozen international awards. They offer quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bitte TB, embrace your true nature. Also brought to you in part by Playground. With over 30,000 square feet of new gaming, dining, and entertainment space, it's time to reacquaint yourself with Playground. World-class sushi, AAA steaks, live shows, a brand new poker floor, and so much more. Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground. Playground, experience the Strip without the trip. By the way, speaking of Playground, I can tell you right now that Agnello has been working on this for quite some time, and he's going to have a charity poker tournament with proceeds going to families of SMA to cure SMA, which of course is what Sammy was diagnosed with at the very young age of just 9 months old. And that poker tournament, and I'm going to be there, and of course Agnello's going to be there, and Sammy's going to be there, and we look forward to seeing you. That poker tournament is going to be on Saturday, February 17th. So save the date. Details will follow in the next couple of days. We're going to have more info on that. But for now, I'll tell you, save the date. It's going to be Saturday, February 17th. I'm so much looking forward to that. It's going to be a great time, great people, a great place, a great time, and a great cause, of course. Also brought to you in part, the Sick Podcast is by Accent Insurance Solutions. You know all insurance isn't created equal. And you know where to find the right solution for you, Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop it for you. That's what they do, to find the right product, right on the money, whatever your insurance needs, whether it's home, automobile, or business. Call the Accent team today and get the right solution at the right price. Visit their website at accentassurance.com. The number to call, 514-363-3636. Without further ado, we bring him in. From Sportsnet, Sportsnet.ca. Eric Engels, how are you?
I'm back on the old school camera here, just for one time. Sorry.
That's okay. Listen, it's not the end of the world. I could see you. It looks like what I look like when I was in Portugal about 10 days ago or whatever. It looked like a little bit of a blur and all that stuff, but it's okay, man. It's okay. It's all good.
The last week has been a bit of a blur. I was at 5 hockey games. I traveled all over the United States and
Wow.
miraculously didn't put on any weight while I was there. So that was good.
It sounds like a dream job and a dream life.
You'd think so, but leaving Montreal to get to New Jersey, we had 3 flights canceled. I flew to Philadelphia. We got into Philadelphia. I ended up, we were waiting to get to the gate for an hour and a half after we landed, which is always fun. Then I took a train to New York from Philadelphia just to get there. And I'm thinking, wow, like train travel is perfect. This is great. And sure enough, the train stopped for an hour on the way in. So that's just a sample of what this trip was like. It was kind of planes, trains, and automobiles, but covered 5 games in 7 nights. And that last night at Belmont Park, watching Patrick Roy make his debut, like those are the stories you live to cover in this business. It was a blast, and I really enjoyed writing about it.
I want to start with the Montreal Canadiens, but I'm happy that you brought up Patrick, and I'm happy that you were there, and I'm happy that you wrote about it because we will get to Patrick. As a matter of fact, I took out a couple of quotes. He's going to be a topic of conversation, but we're going to start with the Canadiens. And by the way, Eric is a regular, of course, on Monday night. But it might not be a long night for you because the second I saw it, the Montreal Canadiens recalled Arber Xhekaj. I had to give George Laraque a call.
For sure.
I'm upset at the world ever since Arber got sent down. And at one point, he didn't think Arber would be back and this and that and whatever. And he was really, really upset. And now he's like the happiest guy in like the city and the province and the country. So George is going to be joining me probably in about 30 minutes time or so. But let's start with the Canadiens. There was a heated debate on BPM Sports, of which I'm a collaborator on George Laraque's show, Monday to Friday at around 12:40 p.m. with Laraque and Gonzalez. But there was a heated debate on the morning show that took place between Renaud Lavoie of TVA Sport and Gilbert Delorme. Gilbert, former NHLer, former Montreal Canadien. Long story short, for those who missed it, Gilbert wasn't having any of this whole fatigue stuff. They drink like champions. They eat like champions. They have nutritionists like champions. They travel like champions. They're highly conditioned athletes. And Renaud was on the other side of the discussion that, you know what, it was 7th game and 11 nights, or it was 6 games and 9 nights at one point, and it took a toll. I think that happened after the loss in Ottawa versus the Senators, where the Canadiens gave up 6, lost by a score of 6-2. The following day, that was their conversation on BPM Sports Radio on the Friday morning. And then, of course, as everyone knows, they gave up 9 in Boston. So let's start with the whole fatigue thing. How much do you put into fatigue, and how much don't you put into fatigue?
I don't look at fatigue as an excuse anymore. I kind of see it as a reason, right? And there's 2 varieties of fatigue. One is physical, which is an obvious thing. And sometimes within a game, it takes time to get the legs going through the first period of the second half of back-to-back, and then they start to come as the game goes on, and the lactic acid buildup kind of turns over. But mental fatigue is a real thing. Like, it just is, like you're engaged for so long and you're running from one city to another. And yes, the Canadiens and every other team in the National Hockey League has to deal with it, and they're given the most optimal circumstances to deal with it well. Like, everything is taken out of their hands to ensure that they do one thing and one thing only, which is rest and prepare and be physically prepared. But the mental aspect is a real one when you're bouncing from arena to arena and just on the road for a while, or coming in on the second half of back-to-back. And that's not unique to the Canadiens. If you ask any team in the league, there's a few of them every year that seems to do well on the second night of a back-to-back. And I think it's more coincidental than it is anything. I don't think you could find an actual recipe as to why that's the case. That said, I'm in the room talking to them after all these games. I haven't heard anybody at any point say, well, we were tired. Nobody's using it as an excuse around there. So I don't know why or how it inspired such a big debate as a topic of discussion. I don't think it's an excuse. I think it is a reason. Is it the reason? I would never put it that way. I do think, though, honestly, and I've been lobbying this for forever, like shorten training camp, shorten the regular season, have the schedule be a little less condensed, and get rid of the amount of back-to-backs we have, because I think as hockey fans, reporters, whoever's in the building to watch it, the product is suffering watching on a night where one team is fresh and the other team, played the night before. It doesn't.
I totally concur. I've been lobbying for like a max 70 game season for I don't know how long. I think there's once again, I think the preseason is too long. I think there's too many 2 and 2s, 3 and 4s, 4 and 6s. I think the Stanley Cup comes out way too late, because when it does, people would rather go out for an ice cream. And that's that. And I know what everyone will come back with, and that the league won't have it, and they need X amount of games to make money, and this and that and whatever. And I've gone as far as saying that if eliminating 12 games, which is 1.5 to 2 games per month during the season, if there's less revenue coming in because of it, I'd be willing to go as far as having advertising, logos, whatever, on jerseys, and some people lose it on me.
I don't think we'd lose out on the revenue side. Like, I don't think we'd lose out on the revenue. I think the quality increase would mitigate whatever you lose in terms of the gate or TV, games being broadcast, maybe 8 less games broadcast between preseason and regular season. More than anything, it's just like uncondensing the schedule. Look, the fatigue thing, okay, and when I get back to the mental side, I'm not a professional athlete, but I'm taking care of myself. I'm working out 4 or 5 times a week, and I just did 5 games in 7 nights in different cities, from Montreal to New Jersey to Boston to Long Island, and I just explained to you what my first travel day was like on that trip. Like, physically, it felt pretty good. Mentally, at certain points of it, when I have to be, my brain has to be firing on all cylinders after a game to produce something that at least I would be proud of, whether the fans like it or not. There's a reason why sometimes it just might not come out that way, as hard as I try, and I'm trying my hardest. So again, not a professional athlete. These guys are paid to do this. I'm paid to do what I do, but mental fatigue is a real thing, and definitely saw it. Absolutely physical factor in the Ottawa game. In the Boston game, much more a mental factor in terms of all the missed assignments and the defensive zone coverage, which, wouldn't consider the Canadiens to be one of the best teams in the league at that, but they are not as bad as they showed in that third period. So, at Boston, by the way, one of the games that I did was Boston, Colorado, because I skipped over Ottawa, Montreal, because it didn't make sense to go from New Jersey to Ottawa to Boston. Speaking of like shitty schedules, my God.
Yeah, I hear you.
Like Boston, I wrote about Boston that night, Tony, after that game.
Yeah.
They're finding their best selves. They're playing unbelievable. They crushed the Winnipeg Jets tonight. They're playing amazing.
Yeah, they are playing amazing. It helped that Scheifele, of course, and Velarde would order the lineup, but I agree with you. I think I read that was the first time in 36 games that a team was able to score more than 3 goals on the Winnipeg Jets or something.
4 in regulation. Yeah.
That's
at least 4 in regulation. That's a good record. They're a good team.
They're a good team, and they have a great coach. And I'm going to tell you this: I hope Marty St. Louis coaches the Montreal Canadiens as long as possible. I do, but the reality is that at one point he won't. All right, and whether it's going to be 4 years or 8 years or 12 years, at one point he won't. I don't know how long his tenure is going to be. I hope it's going to be a long time.
I'd be curious to see what his tenure is now, weighed against some of the coaches in the league. There's been so much turnover in the league. He might be in the top 10 in terms of like how long he's been on the Canadiens bench. Isn't that crazy?
But I think you know what I'm getting at. I mean, if one day Marty's not going to be here, I hope Jim Montgomery coaches the Montreal Canadiens one day.
Oh man, he's I think the thing I respect the most about Jim Montgomery, and I had a really nice chat with him while I was in Boston, he's a super good guy, and obviously Kent Hughes knows him really well. And Jim's ability to take over at the point at which the Bruins were at and know how to keep his hands off the wheel, so to speak, is a huge part of his success. Like that room runs itself. And if you were to come in as a new coach and start injecting yourself into it, which is very very tempting to do as a new coach coming into that situation because, obviously, Cassidy's an incredible coach too, and we saw that in Vegas last year. But everybody is a shelf.
Of course,
like Jim's ability to be hands off is as much a part of his success as it is what he's put his hands on with that team.
And to think that he lost Patrice Bergeron and he lost David Krejci, and to think that Zdeno Chara was such a big part of that team, that organization for such a long time too, and he's been gone. It's a couple of years now, and they just, it's unbelievable. They're a well-oiled machine, man.
I wrote about it like they're a team that you would circle and say, okay, with those two centers gone and what Sean Monahan's doing, they should be interested. They don't really have the assets to go after him. They don't have the assets to really go after anybody. But my big conclusion after watching them for a couple days in Boston, especially what they did to Montreal after that game against Colorado, which they were dominant in, and now this game in Winnipeg, they don't have anything to do anything. They don't need to do anything. Like, what do they need to do to make themselves that much better? Could they use a bruising defenseman? Yes. Could they use a Sean Monahan on their third line? Maybe. Do they need one? No. Like, it's pretty amazing what that team is doing.
They could use a centerman.
They could use one, but they also, when I was there when they were playing against Colorado, Matthew Poitras was out of the lineup. They had two centers playing the wing because other guys were playing better at the position. But between Charlie Coyle, who's playing fantastic in the top line, Habs Xhekaj has moved over to the wing and was back at center for one of the games. Trent Frederick has played center. John Beecher's out, but rotating guys in and out of the lineup and onto the wing because they have depth at the position. They're not worried about it. And honestly, I don't think they should be. Like I said, could they use it on Monahan? Would he be a great dude for their third line potentially? And at times on the middle six, or up in the top six? Sure. Do they need one? I would debate it with you. In the East, I think they can.
We're going to have our answer
with anybody.
We're going to have our answer in the playoffs. Now, having said that, I mean, with Bergeron and Krejci, they went out right away in the first round last year. So who's to say? But you know what? I would take Charlie Coyle on my team, and I'd take Pavel Zacha on my team, and some of the other guys you talked about as well. If you told me that they were my first and second centerman going into the playoffs, I would want an upgrade. But listen, we'll see in the playoffs. We don't have the answer right now. You have your opinion. I have my opinion. We'll only find out the answer in the playoffs. All right, okay. This is what I didn't like on Saturday night. I agree with you, and this discussion, by the way, of the whole fatigue, not fatigued. If I say they were fatigued, playing their 7th game in 11 nights, they were out of gas, I'm going to have 50% of people agree with me. And I'm going to have 50% of people tell me that they're not fatigued. And by the way, and they're the best conditioned athletes, and they make millions. And some of them only play 12, 13 minutes a game, and they travel by charter. And then they're going to tell me that they actually travel 2 hours a day to get to work, to go and come back, and in traffic. And some of them work manual labor, and they work in construction, and that's real work. And this isn't, and all that stuff. So you know what? I'm going to have 50% of people agreeing with me, and I'm going to have 50% of people that don't. I believe that fatigue is a thing in the National Hockey League. Having said that, this is what upsets me, or this is what I was disappointed in. There's some games where I think you got to get by on sheer heart, drive, adrenaline, even if you're running on fumes. The Boston Bruins and the Montreal Canadiens has been arguably the greatest rivalry in hockey, or one of the top 5 on everyone's list. Okay. And I know a lot of athletes nowadays don't know that the Canadiens and the Bruins played their first series in 1928. And I know a lot of them don't know that these two organizations have played each other 34 times in the playoffs. And I know a lot of them don't know that they've played each other 937 times total. And I know a lot of these Montreal Canadiens don't know that the Canadiens beat the Boston Bruins in the playoffs for even 18 straight playoff series before getting eliminated back in 1988. Having said that, it still bothers me. Like, this team, they gave up in the last 15 minutes. That's the way it looked like on television to me. It looked like they gave up.
Yeah, listen, if it bothers you, it really bothered them because they said the same thing in the room after the game. And the reason it should really bother them, it should bother them no matter what in any game where their effort was substandard. But it really bothered them and it should bother them because it's not their identity and that's not who they've proven themselves to be. We could say a lot of things about the Canadiens. They're way lower down on the talent pool versus most of their competition in the National Hockey League. They are in the second phase of building up their team and very early on in the process and are still a few pieces away from where they'd like to be as competitive as they want to be. But one thing that you haven't been able to say about them under Marty St. Louis is that they haven't put in a full effort, on most nights, if not, close to all of them. That was not the case in Boston. And it's particularly unforgivable in a game where they were down 1 goal going to the third period in the game, whether it was 5-4 or not. And a lot of it was loose hockey between both teams. The Bruins let them hang around for as long as they wanted to. And then when they decided they didn't want them to hang around, it was not a hockey game. And
it looked that way to me.
And from the Habs perspective,
they gave up in Ottawa too, Eric.
They've made see the Ottawa game. I see a lot more of the physical, mental fatigue factor. That's one where instead of as an excuse, it's a reason. There was no excuse for what happened in Boston because one thing this team has done really well since the start they've responded to their bad performances. And it looked like they were doing that in Boston until all of a sudden Boston made it much harder on them. And yeah, they let their guard down. I mean, Sam Montembeault, credit to this guy for standing up in the room after and answering questions after a game in which, he allowed 9 goals. It was full stand up and nobody was going to fully blame him for the loss. He definitely didn't play his, 8 goals, excuse me. Definitely didn't play his best game. After he got drilled in the head with that shot, which he told me he took right in the jaw, and he couldn't bite, he couldn't close his mouth. He was shook up. And on the third goal, he got run into before it went in. So it was just a confluence of things that
he looked like he was laboring on several occasions during the game,
off. And he was off for the rest of the night, and he admitted as much. But he also said we should have worked hard to come back in the game when we didn't, and that's not who the Canadiens are. And I'll tell you, there is certainly a budding rivalry, if not a full one in full bloom, with the Ottawa Senators. And I expect that Tuesday night at the Bell Center, we're going to see a response. And Marty St. Louis is expecting it, and all the guys in that room should be expecting it. Because I'll tell you, I talked to all of them before the Boston game, and they were very excited about playing that game. So whatever happened in that third period, that can't be something that continues.
Well, there should be a response if we're going to say that the whole fatigue thing is actually a reality and it's a reason, because the Ottawa Senators are coming into this game, and on Tuesday night, tomorrow night, it's going to be their third game in 4 nights because they played on Saturday night and they played on Sunday afternoon, and they're going to be playing on Tuesday night as well. So now, speaking of Montembeault, why didn't Marty pull him?
Earlier? Yeah, so I asked him. I said, did you think about pulling him?
He gave up 8, man.
Yeah, I said, did you think about pulling him earlier? And he said, well, I think after the 5th goal, he thought about it, but then said to himself, we're down 1 goal. It's 5-4 now with Gallagher scoring, and we're going into the third period, which was his answer. So he thought about it. He thought about it. I
have a problem with that.
And then his answer got way
but
better.
At 6-4, I pull him though.
Well, his answer got way better and really fueled my column because he said, it was 5-4 at that point, 1 goal when Gallagher, tied the game. He said, but once it got to 8, I felt like it might get to 12. So it was a mercy pulling, it wasn't like let's get him out of it because he's not having his night.
So I buy what he's saying, by the way.
Dude, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with letting, if you ask any goalie who's in that situation, even if they give up a 6 spot, they want to be in there battling with their teammates, trying to get it back. The thing is, once Marty realized, and Sam definitely realized it with the goals that were getting past him, with guys totally unmarked in front of the net, that the guys weren't fighting around him. So there's no point exposing him further to that.
Correct.
So it is what it is. Nobody wants to leave their starting.
I bought everything he said, by the way.
Yeah.
But once the Bruins made it 6-4, and then it's now a 2-goal game in the third, and now you've given up 6, there's a couple of things you can do, right, to get your team back
Right.
on track. You either shake
Right.
them up to call a timeout, or you make a goalie change.
That
And I think you should have made it.
that sixth goal was a rink-long breakaway for David Pastrnak. Like, I agree with you.
Yeah.
They needed a wake-up call, like, right then and there.
Correct. Correct.
But yeah, I mean, no coach wants to expose their goalie to that.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I hear you.
It's ironic we're talking about that because of where I was last
Yeah.
night and what I saw, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm not, I wasn't pulling him because he gave up a breakaway goal to Pastrnak. I was pulling him because it's 6-4, it's a 2-goal lead, it's the third period, and you want a wake-up call. And you don't want 6 to get to 10. All right.
You know what I meant, though, right? You know
yes,
what
I know exactly what you meant. Of
No
course,
coach
100%.
wants to see that unless, we're back
Okay.
in 1995.
George Laraque should be joining us in 5 minutes' time, hopefully. He's been late before, but it's okay. He's he's much heavier than I am and a lot stronger, so I'm not going to say.
I get to say hi to George. I haven't seen George in a long time.
I'd love for you to be able to say hi to George. All right, so we'll make sure that happens. Talk to me about Patrick Roy. All right, we're there. Patrick Roy, there's a lot of people that are watching right now on YouTube Live, on Facebook Live, and on Twitter Live, and I thank you all for watching. I love you. But there's a lot of people that are watching right now that have wanted Patrick Roy to work for the Montreal Canadiens for a very, very long time. They wanted him either as a coach, they wanted him as a general manager, they wanted him to whatever, to enter this organization, and it never happened. And there's a lot of people that are watching that probably thought that Patrick Roy would never get another opportunity again in the National Hockey League. And there are some that are watching that thought that if he was going to get an opportunity in the National Hockey League, maybe it was going to be with an eventual return of the Quebec Nordiques, if that's going to happen. Or maybe it was going to happen in Ottawa because of Michael Landauer and because of Landauer saying that, he feels that the Francophones have somewhat been were neglected by the Senators organization and the Gatineau region, and he wants to revamp all of that and get them. Some people probably thought he was going there. I don't think anyone thought he was going to the Islanders. So how surprised were you when you heard Patrick Roy is the new head coach of the New York Islanders?
I was shocked and super happy for Patrick Roy, honestly.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I haven't enjoyed writing about a subject the way I did last night in a long time. Because, I described my travel into New Jersey at the beginning of the week, and I was on my way home to Montreal when Roy got hired on Saturday night and said, okay, I'm canceling that flight to Montreal and I'm going to New York. And I booked a train ride. And on the train, I got to watch the videos coming out from the morning skate. And I saw the press conference. And I got to tell you, man, one of the big reasons, we all know the reason Patrick Roy didn't have a job until 2 days ago in the NHL, and it took 7 years to get there, because every person in a hiring position was looking at him and saying, is he going to want my job? Does he want control of everything? He seems like that's his reputation. That's who he is.
Yeah.
And the thing that kept coming back to me in my head as I was riding the train on my way to Long Island is not only is he coming back, he's going to work for Lou Lamoriello. He's going to work for a guy who's the boss of bosses, the guy who we refer to as the Godfather in hockey.
He's the Godfather.
And it really undoes that narrative that Patrick needs to be in control of everything. And seeing Patrick show up on his first day on the job with a clean-shaven face, and I had this conversation with an executive in the rink who said that's really interesting. And he was being serious, because it is really interesting. Because if you think about that very benign act, this just shaving his face because that's the Lou Lamoriello way, it is symbolic. It is a submission. It is a submission from Patrick Roy that he is going to fall in line and do his role and not try to do everybody else's. And that's what kept him out of a job for this long. And I think, let's not be mistaken, Patrick Roy was hired for his passion, his energy. I think about Lane Lambert coaching the Islanders, and he did a reasonable job with a roster that I think has some flaws in it for sure, especially when you look at the trends in play. But for a team that's been categorized as boring, Lane Lambert is literally oatmeal. Just he's the opposite of Patrick Waugh, who is just fire. He's a delicious meal. This guy, he's got so much energy and it's boundless, and that's why he was hired. He has not changed who he is, and that is why he was hired for his passion. But the reason he was given the job is because he is not this control freak that everybody has made him out to be, that he has matured. He has learned from his past. He said he regretted some of the things he did as a young coach, that he is excited to learn from Lou Lamoriello, excited to learn from Jacques Lemaire. And the hockey world should be so excited and ebullient to see this guy behind the bench. It was amazing to watch him last night. And sure enough, they win. Bo Horvat saying it felt like he was playing the game with us. It was just such an exciting story to cover. And the fact that he's on his way to Montreal in a couple of days is even more exciting.
It's incredible, Lou Lamoriello, the amount of coaches that he went to get from the Montreal Canadiens organization. He started with Jacques Lemaire. After that, he went to Larry Robinson. He went to Pat Burns. Pat Burns, he went to Claude Julien. I don't even know if it's in the same in that exact order. And of course, now with Patrick Waugh. I mean, he went to get a lot of coaches that were in the Montreal Canadiens organization, either as players, executives, part of management, or actually coached the Montreal Canadiens.
You know what else, Tony?
Brought them to Jersey, and now he's brought Patrick Waugh to Long Island.
You know what else, Tony? Like, it would be so easy to be cynical and just say Patrick hasn't changed at all. And this is who Patrick is, and he's always going to be that guy. And this, you have to really think about what this guy has been through. He was a good coach at this level. He goes back to Quebec. He wins the Memorial Cup. He reinvests himself. And he said it himself. I left Colorado thinking the phone would ring, and 7 years went by and it didn't ring. You don't think that humbles somebody? You don't think even
big time
the guy with the biggest ego in the world wouldn't be humbled by that?
I would think so.
And
at one point, Eric, I said he hasn't changed up until now. He's not going to change, but I have to Patrick Waugh. I was all for the second chance after, and this only came after I saw the job that he did with the Quebec Ramparts, because before that I was saying I wouldn't touch him. Canadiens fans, forget about it. I would not touch him. He would want to be the coach, the assistant coach, the GM, the assistant GM, the water boy, the video coach. He would want to be everything, right? I always said that, and then he won me over with the job that he did with the Ramparts, because every single player basically would put their teeth in front of a puck for him. Every single player would sacrifice their body for him. He had everyone buy into the whole team concept thing.
He's a winner.
And
he's a winner. The
way they played was amazing. Yeah, and he proved it again last night by winning his first game on a team. That defensive stats were absolutely terrible before last night.
And they weren't great in the game, but honestly, that he has time to work on, and he has a plan and he has a structure, and he sold that to Lou Lamoriello. But to me, what the coolest thing about this, and the biggest reason why I think he'll succeed, and this is what I wrote about last night, is that he has adapted, he has been humbled, he has matured, but he hasn't lost himself in all that. And don't forget why he was hired. He was hired for that passion. He was hired to be the antithesis to the oatmeal that Lane Lambert was bringing to the New York Islanders. And things are about to get a lot more exciting there. And I don't know about you, the NHL, I'm sure this is a much more exciting place with Patrick Waugh in it. It's just, what a huge story. And again, these are everyone asks us, what we love about our jobs. There is nothing more enjoyable about this job than covering a story like that parachuting into New York yesterday and getting to do that. And I was exhausted, but it was fun, man. It was so much fun.
All right. So talk to us about, we know what happened. It comes in, they win by a score of 3-2 in overtime on a breakaway goal by Bo Horvat. His goalie stands on his head. But what were you? Who were you able to speak with while you were there?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Horvat. I spoke to some executives who were in attendance to the game. There was a couple of extra scouts that I think came in just to see what was going to happen there. I think one of the best moments of the night was just after the game, just seeing the way Patrick was nervous on the bench and expending his energy, and like from the press box, which is way far away from that bench, you could hear Patrick. You could actually hear him in the rink. It was crazy. I don't think I've ever experienced that before, where I could hear the coach from all the way across and up in the sky. And I asked him after the game, I said, like, just simple question, like, how much do you love this? And he said, I loved it. Like, I could be on a golf course right now, but like, this is where I feel alive. And like, it was
Was there a buzz in the building because Patrick Waugh was behind the bench? Yeah, big buzz.
As soon as the puck dropped, people in the stands were cheering Patrick Waugh. It was. I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was great to watch. And like, honestly, the Islanders gave up 6 odd man rushes in the first 2 minutes of the game, and Ilya Sorokin just stood on his head. This guy is unbelievable.
He's one of the best goalies in the league. Yeah,
they created a lot of chances themselves, and like they won the game on pure heart with a comeback effort in the third period. And like, I don't know, if I was a player on that bench with that energy behind me, I'd be pretty pumped up. One of the interesting things was talking to Horvat.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just talking to Horvat, talking to Pajot, talking to Matt Martin, talking about some of the veterans. I was asking them one specific question, was like the tactical elements that he discussed with you, which obviously he hasn't set out his whole blueprint of how he's going to change things in New York.
Of course not.
But what he immediately wanted to attack, were you sitting there kind of nodding and saying, yes, like this is what we need to do? And all of them said yes. And one of the things I asked Pajot was like, you've been in the league for a while. Like, how long do you think it'll take to make the changes that he wants to make? Because we're talking about a pretty different way of playing. And they're about to go through a very different, like Patrick himself saying after the game, I think our defensemen are so used to protecting the house that they're scared to move from the front of the net in our own zone. And like, I want to break that and I want to change that. And it's going to take time. And it takes time to change muscle memory. But Pajot said, you look around this room, there's a lot of guys in here, a lot of good veterans, a lot of guys who have been around for a long time, and that probably makes it easier to make the tactical changes because we can follow and we can lead.
Yeah.
I say this. I think Patrick will be successful. I think he'll be more successful than most coaches would be in his shoes coming in there trying to turn that team around. He's not in control of the roster, and he can't undo and completely turn around some very disturbing trends in terms of the way that team has gone recently. But I don't think anybody could do better with it than he will. And in the process, he'll be rehabilitating an image that really took a hit with the way he left Colorado. And I think that started
big time
with not only what he said, but what was so painfully obvious to me that he actually was, in fact, humbled and not just playing to the crowd with what he said.
Really happy that he got this second chance, and you know what? Good for you, Lou Lamoriello, for having the security, the confidence to say, you know what? I'm not scared of this guy. You know what?
Of all people, to hire him, that it's Lou is really interesting.
But with all due respect to the Islanders, though, I have to tell you, I would have loved Patrick in Ottawa. It just would have made that rivalry so much better. And if it wasn't going to be Ottawa, Boston, but I mean, Boston's not looking for a coach, but Ottawa, you would think that he would have been great to be the next guy after Jacques Martin.
We'll see who they bring in the end here, because
they're going to bring in Berube.
Maybe Alfredsson's on the bench for a reason. I don't know.
Yeah, listen,
Marty Craig Berube, by the way, saw Craig Berube on this trip. Also, he's actually doing some scouting for St. Louis.
Yeah, and, I know. Yeah,
he's a good coach. From his style to the way he does coach, though, I don't know how different he is from DJ Smith. Albeit he's obviously a different voice, and sometimes that makes all the difference. Jacques Martin, I have a lot of respect for Jacques Martin, but I do think like this narrative that's evolved that he is this incredible defensive tactician is a little overblown. And again, he took over a team that was completely lost in its own zone, and like he could be the best coach, like he'd be Scotty Bowman, and like I don't think he's fixing that overnight. But when Jacques Martin was in Montreal, he spent the entire time talking about what wins games, and it was special teams and goaltending. And he's a big believer in the Ken Hitchcock style school, 5 guys in the picture at all times. But there's a big difference between having those tactics and employing them and teaching them and really being able to communicate them to this generation of player, which as though he's been around, although he's been around them in an assistant coach capacity, it's been a long time since he was in that role. And like, I think that's why we haven't seen an immediate turnaround with
you said you wanted to say hello to George Laraque. I've just been told
Sure.
he's here. Let's bring him on. All right. There he is.
Wow.
Oh my God. What in the world is going on here, man?
Not just dropping the gloves, he's dropping the shirt.
Oh, man.
I was sleeping, Tony. I'm naked, so I'll go back to bed after.
Tony, it's better than you in the hot tub, man.
You're in Seattle. What are you doing in Seattle?
I did some community event in the city with the fans and stuff. It was awesome.
Okay.
Did a lot of work with some kids. And a lot of work with the Kraken too. I was talking to the players, my inclusion job that I do, talking about diversity with all the players in the room. And I talked to the staff too, Ron Francis. Talked to pretty much everyone. It's a class act organization. You know, that rink. Did you know that Seattle has the most sustainable rink in the world? Did you know that?
It's called Climate Pledge Arena.
Yeah, it's
Climate Pledge
unbelievable.
Arena,
It's unbelievable. Everything is electric, no gas, neutral carbon free. It's unbelievable, this rink, Tony. It's amazing. You know,
what I hear.
They showed me around, and the staff and everything they do is class act. It's amazing. I love my time.
Did my buddy Mitch Garber know that you're there?
Of course, he's a friend of mine. I've been texting him since I've been there. So I told him how good this team is and awesome the organization, everything, the facility, everything that they do is unbelievable. Like the operation that they do, the place they're taking in a community is just awesome. It's a place that you have to visit one day.
George, have you seen the sun there?
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of rains.
Yeah,
I was lucky one day to have the sun, but in the winter it's raining a lot. It's gray a lot.
I was there for 4 days for the Board of Governors meeting, and it rained from the minute I got there to the minute I left.
There's a lot of rain. You got to have an umbrella when you're here. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Where's the pillow? It's
the pillow's on the bed, but you don't want me to get up to go get it.
The pillow's on the get up, go get it.
No.
Hey, so are you happy now?
I don't want to traumatize your listeners if I get up.
Are you happy now or what? You've been crying, you've been screaming. They sent Xhekaj down to Laval. They wanted to control him. They wanted to tame him. They want him to relax him. They can't believe they did this. He's the one guy who should have stayed up. He's never going to be back. Him and the Montreal Canadiens, it's over. They're going to trade him. He's done. Are you happy now?
You know, Tony, no, I'm not. And I'll tell you why, okay?
Whoa.
Xhekaj, I'll explain to you why. Xhekaj should have never been sent down. When you're hurt and, you have to be given a chance when you get back when you're hurt before you send a guy down. All these things about learning how to play and this and that, that's bullshit. The way that he played and the dimension that he brings to this team, nobody else on that team could bring that dimension. You send him down because you say he needs to learn how to play hockey. On a team that was rebuilding, he was +1. He was not -15 when he was up there. So he was not a bad defenseman. So they sent him down. You know what's funny though, Tony? When they're sending him down, the majority of the team in the NHL were calling the Montreal Canadiens to acquire him. Because they're like, if they don't think he's good enough to play in the lineup now, teams that were better than us were willing to trade for him right now. Not to send him in the minors, to have him to play in the NHL now. So what's been going on, Tony, in the last couple of weeks is that the most time that he spent in the minors, team are putting pressure on the Canadian. They're like, listen, if you don't want this guy, we'll take him, but in the NHL now. They're not calling him because they want him in the lineup to be playing or whatever. There's all the pressure and all the teams that want him. So at the end of the day, they have to figure it out. Do we want him in the lineup every game? Or we want to get rid of him? But Tony, it's true. Because if they don't want him, another team is going to take him.
Hold on a second. George, listen to me carefully. Love your opinion, by the way. Here's my opinion. They lost a lot of battles in Ottawa on Thursday. Pizzetto was alone. That's a team that carries a lot of guys that can take care of themselves. That's a team that if Brady Tkachuk doesn't see somebody on the other side, he could start taking liberties. They gave up in the third. They gave up early on in the third in Boston. The team needs something to pick them up right now. Barron has not been playing well, and I would also say they've been preparing for this for a while, I think, and that's why you saw Jordan Harris playing right D. That's why you saw Caden Gooley playing right D. I think they had a feeling that Barron was probably going down and that Xhekaj was going to come into the lineup, who, of course, is a left-handed defenseman. Eric, I'd love to have your take on this before we go back to George here.
Well, I'll give you some info. First of all, when they sent Arber down, it wasn't with the idea that he'll come up when he's ready to come up. It was with the idea that this is going to be a limited stint, but it's going to be a stint, that they were going to give him a few weeks. Look, do they think that he was, playing so badly that he absolutely needed a correction phase in the AHL? No. Do they think he could have used the time to work on his defensive game? Yes. Do they want to give him up to another team? No. Have they been fielding calls like George said? Absolutely, because there's a lot of teams in the NHL that see Arber Xhekaj as a potential top 4 defenseman, and I agree with them. I agree. If you look at all those guys who are guys that have already established the floor of being a 5-6 in the NHL, and Arber has done that, I would circle his name as the guy outside of Caden Gooley that could really emerge as a top 4 defenseman. So every team in the league sees that, and a lot of teams would kill to have him. And I'll tell you right now, just speaking with some sources, that the Canadiens don't want to trade this player and have told teams they don't want to trade him. They have the luxury of doing this. I understand George's perspective, and it's an informed perspective. He's a former player in this league, and he knows what it is to be on the other side of this from a mental aspect and physical aspect. But at the same time, I don't think this damaged Arber. I think this probably turned him into a stronger professional and a better player, and I think that's the player we're going to see when he comes back up. It helped
Logan Mailloux a lot too. I
get your theory. Yeah, he's in a different spot, but I get your theory about the timing of bringing him back up. But I would tell you that if it wasn't now, it was going to be pretty soon anyways.
But think about it, guys, though, and understand the job that what he was doing. He's doing the toughest job in the NHL right now. He's playing with a team that is rebuilding. He's fighting, defending his teammates. He's there for everyone. You don't send a guy that has that dimension to your team down to the minors. He's fighting for all his teammates. We've never had a guy like that, and you send him down to say he has to work on his game. He should never be in competition with the other Ds that are out there because they can't do what he does.
But do you think it's going to make him worse? George, do you think it's going to make him worse?
No, but Eric, think about it, Tony. Eric, think about it. Think about that point, okay? Let's look at what the Canadian has done, okay? They sent him down because we say he needs to work on his game, okay? Why does the team that are better than Montreal Canadiens, while they did that, why were they ready with a better team on paper to take him right now? And he was not going to go in the minors. He was go in the lineup right now.
Can I answer?
For team better than us,
because they probably don't have the depth the Canadiens have on defense.
No, I would have a lot of depth another way. They could insulate him better, number one, and number two, because they believe that he would be fine with them. But I'll tell you something, George. For the first year that Arber was in this lineup, that's the exact reason he never saw the AHL. All that stuff you're talking about, they couldn't afford to push him away based on what he was doing. But they still wanted him to be the best version of himself. And whether or not he liked it, whether or not you like it, I think he's going to be a better version of himself when he comes back up because of this experience.
No, he will be better, but they should never do that again, ever. Because for his confidence, it's not the best thing. Put yourself in the position of a guy that fights, that does everything he can to be in this lineup, plays a full year in the NHL, and goes in the minors, having guys going after him to make a name for themselves, taking a chance to getting hurt. You don't want that. If he gets hurt in the minors, you can get him back up. You don't want that. This guy should be in Montreal every game. If you don't want him, trade him. But if he's there, he's not there to be a 6 or 7 defenseman. He has to play every night, and the other D, let them fight together because they look more alike. But the dimension that he brings is a dimension that nobody in Montreal has. and he's one of the best in the league to do what he does. And the confidence he brings to this team is so important. And
George, I'll say this.
I'll
say this. That night that he fought Janot versus Tampa, and it wasn't his best fight. Probably didn't go the way he would have wanted to. And before the end of the game, he wanted to get back at him, and everyone remembers that, right? Gave him a nice shot, and he got penalized. I think he got a double minor. And the Canadiens were down 4-0 in that game. They made it 4-2 at one point, and then he ended up in the box. You heard from St. Louis at the end of the game. He didn't like that, and he called him out. He basically said, "I didn't like that." I don't remember what he said, but he talked about it as a bad penalty, and you got the feeling that he thought that Xhekaj was thinking more of himself in that situation than the team.
Tony, listen.
I'm not justifying what St. Louis said, by the way. I'm saying I think it hurt him that night. I think it hurt him.
Okay, Tony, listen. Okay, I'll ask you, Eric and Tony. When is the last time the Montreal Canadiens had a player that was the aggressor and not the responder? When? When was the last time? Tell me.
Shane Corson? George Laraque?
No, but think about it. You can't punish a guy for being too aggressive. You can't punish a guy because he wants to go and fight somebody again. Yes, it's going to happen sometimes. That's the dimension that he brings. Martin St. Louis should understand that. Martin St. Louis is a skilled guy, but he's never fought in his career. He has to understand that Xhekaj, with his role, sometimes, yes, he'll be taking penalties. And you know what? If he's going to take penalties, what's better to doing it in the year that you know Montreal is not going to be in the playoff? He's established himself right now. So it's okay. So sometimes they'll get aggressiveness penalties. They're not lazy penalties. They're not like lazy forechecking penalties.
No, but in this particular case,
aggressive penalties.
In this particular case, and yes, it was a case of aggression, but it was him trying to even score a personal score. And what Marty always talks about is doing things that take care of the team first. And he's going against the culture that he's trying to establish. And yes, this might be a down year for the Canadiens and nothing really matters. But when you're trying to establish a culture of making sure you take care of the team before you take care of yourself, that is where that came into play, and that's why he said what he said. Should he have said it publicly? That's debatable.
But you know what?
But Eric, I'm going to say this. And George is a lot more qualified to actually go down this route. But I'm going to say this, based on what I know and the players I've talked to, and the role that people like Arber have, and people like George had, and so many other good ones that had that role. These guys do so many things for the team.
Absolutely.
And end up fighting other guys when their knuckles are broken, and end up fighting other guys when they're probably not feeling it, or they're hurt, or they're down, or they're this, or they're that. They put the team ahead of themselves all the time. That if they're going to put themselves ahead of the team just once, you should close your eyes if you're
Tony,
the coach.
First of all, Tony, you guys are so wrong, and Marty's so wrong if he said that what he did is taking him above the team. That's not it. When you're into that role, and you're the gladiator, you got to show everyone that if you slipped once, you're going again. When Ryan Reeves slipped against Xhekaj in Toronto, you know how bad he looked when he had the opportunity to go against Xhekaj again? He didn't. The media after the game went after Ryan Reeves. They're like, what happened? What happened? When did you go after him again? And he said, he jumped me. He knows where to find me. You were on the ice with him. When did you go again? You know, because it was in his head. Xhekaj, when it happened with Janati slip, he wanted to go again. That's not putting the team before him above the team. It's his job. Ask any player in his dressing room how they feel when Xhekaj is in the lineup. How much more confident they are. Ask Schofield. He said publicly that he makes them feel bigger and bigger and taller when he's in the lineup. They all know his contribution. He's well liked by everyone. They want him in the lineup. You know, it was not their decision. So sometimes when you do this job, that you guys might not understand because you guys are calling this job dinosaur and you don't want tough guys and you want guys to play ballet and no hitting game anymore. You guys want to see the ice capade on the ice. I understand that. But you know what? Xhekaj is not an ice capade guy. He brings dimension to this team that we need. He brings toughness to this team that we need. And when he drops the glove, everybody in Bell Center is standing up on their feet, clapping and yelling and screaming.
We understand.
You guys
that.
don't like that? You guys don't understand because he's saying he put himself above the team. That's his job. He slipped once. He wants to go again. Don't give him shit because of that. Good for him to go after him again. He gets a penalty again. Good. Next time, Janot's going to know that next time he has to be careful because
I'm going to concede. You fought the fight. You fought the fight really well, and you made a very good argument. I'm gonna argue with you on one thing that you said a little earlier, though. And
I'm not going to say anything because I'm worried he's going to get up and flash us.
You talked about Xhekaj's confidence and what the Canadiens might have done to it with him going down. I don't think they ever sent him down without knowing. Like, you spent time with Xhekaj. You have spent time with this guy. This guy doesn't have a confidence issue, and I don't think anything the Canadiens would have done would have dented it to the degree that it would hurt him and not make him come back even stronger. That's one thing about this player that I think he could handle what happened to him here. And I think, and you could tell me if you disagree, no matter what role you play in the NHL, the experience of going down to the AHL, as humbling and as difficult as it can be to process, especially for a guy who really stands up for the team like Xhekaj does, it doesn't kill you. It makes you stronger. I think it will make him stronger.
Well, he will be better, but they called him up. You remember, at one point, I didn't even know if that was going to happen.
I did.
The fact that they...
Just telling you, information-wise, I knew that he was not going to be there for the rest of the season, that he was coming back, and that it was short-term. That is what somebody told me within the organization.
Yeah. I was hoping that it was not
I knew he was coming back for the game on January 23rd. Go ahead.
I was hoping that it was not more than a week, but the longest that it was, I didn't like it. I saw people running him in the minors, going after him, wanted to make a name for themselves. So the fact that they call him in now, he's going to play with a chip in his shoulder, knowing that, you know what, I could be sent down. So he'll bring his level up for sure because he doesn't want that to happen. So you're right about the fact that it is a humbling experience. He's not going to want to be back there in Laval again. But, and I don't think it's going to happen because he will be better now for sure. But I'm not one of these guys that I'm going to say that before he was hurt that he was playing bad. I don't think he deserved an emotion.
I don't think they thought that either. I don't think they thought he was playing bad. I just think they thought they could turn him into the type of player that everybody sees he could be. I think they believe the same thing that I do, that he could be, out of all those guys, Harris, Barron, whoever, he's the guy who could be a top 4 defenseman on this team. But you got to turn him into that. You got to be able to do that. And it's, George, offensive blue line in, this guy is awesome. Offensively, he's great. Challenging, physical, standing up for his teammates and playing tough, fantastic. What's the 2 things he needed to work on the most? His positioning, his stick positioning, and defensive play. It's not like he's a perfect player. People forget he's 22 years old, like an undrafted guy who was signed to this team. He still needs to become a better player.
Okay, but Eric. Okay. I love what you just said there. So I have a little curve for you. You just said he's 22 years old. It's not like he gets to learn. Okay, right. So you're saying be patient with him, right?
Sure.
We're patient with Slav.
Sure.
Why couldn't we be? Why we're patient with Slav when for a part of the season we thought he should be in the minors? They were patient with him, and now he's playing good.
Yeah.
Why aren't we patient with Xhekaj and kept him in Montreal like we did with Slavkovsky?
I think they see a different talent level for I think they see a different talent level for Slavkovsky. Okay. And they thought he would be better off with his weaknesses to work in Montreal, and with Xhekaj's weaknesses to work in Laval.
Eric said, "Be patient with him," and okay, we're patient with Slav. Eric, why aren't we patient with Xhekaj in Montreal?
I don't think I think you're positioning it as a lack of patience that they sent him down, and I don't think it's about that. I think it's about giving him an opportunity to work on something specific at a level that will enable him to do that. When we're talking about Slav, I think the biggest argument, and I've been very consistent on this, to send Slav to the AHL when it was such a hot button topic was to increase his confidence. If you wanted to teach him how to play faster, he wasn't going to be able to do that at the AHL level. They had different things to work on, George. You're making a good point. You're connecting 2 dots, and you make good points. You made a great point about Xhekaj not being selfish in looking after himself. But at the same time, I don't view it as, they sent him down because they're impatient with his game and they don't think it's up to snuff. I think they sent him down because they look at this player and say, this guy is going to be a top 4 defenseman, and we need to do what we think will enable him to get there inevitably, because we don't want him playing on our 3rd pair. We want him playing on our 2nd pair. And right now, the way he's playing defensively, we can't play him on our 2nd pair. You're also not going to make the same decisions, guys, in regards to when one guy is a first pick overall. And another guy is an undrafted NHL depth defenseman.
Okay, why?
Because it's a different scale.
If life were fair, George, you're right. there would be no difference. But unfortunately,
if life were
politics,
fair, George would be pressed right now.
Yeah.
Politics in hockey.
For sure. You draft a guy first overall in Montreal, you're pretty careful about how you handle it.
Guys, this has been a lot of fun. All right. Before we say goodnight, George, if you're Arber Xhekaj, or if you would pick, or if Arber would pick up the phone and give you a call and try and go through what tomorrow night's game is going to look like. And I think the Canadiens have to be a little bit upset that they were a little bit manhandled in Ottawa, and that's probably one of the reasons for his recall too.
Yeah.
What would be kicked the crap out of Castlenick, by the way?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Well, and I really liked that Marty played him in the next game against Boston. If he had pulled him out with Josh Anderson coming in, that really would have been the wrong message.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. So, George, what advice could you give Xhekaj who would say, "Hey, you know what, George? I'm getting called back up to the show. You know what? I'm a little bit nervous. I don't want to take a bad penalty again. I don't want to." And he might be, he might be caught in that whole adrenaline thing going. So how does he handle it?
Okay, I'm crossing my finger, Tony, that somebody has talked to Martin St. Louis, and Martin St. Louis. If nobody has talked to you, I'm talking to you right now. Arber Xhekaj brings a dimension to this team that you can't tone down. If Martin St. Louis goes to Xhekaj and say, "Play hockey. We need you to play hockey. Don't take any penalties." What's going to happen? You're going to Xhekaj that's going to be less physical, less intimidating, and then if he doesn't bring that dimension, he's not as imposing as he could be. I don't know what Martin St. Louis is going to say to him. Because, again, this game tomorrow, as we know, we need him to be physical, to be a force. He will take, aggressive penalties sometimes. That's if Martin St. Louis let him. I don't know what he's going to tell him. Because I have no idea what we're going to see tomorrow. Are we going to see a guy that was aggressive like he was before? Aggressive, taking, no prisoner and pushing, hitting guys and maybe taking penalties because of aggressiveness? Or we're going to be a guy that's going to be tentative because the coach is going to talk to him, that I say, don't take any stupid penalties, and he's going to be careful. If he's like that, it's going to change his game, and he's not going to be as effective.
I'm going to make a prediction.
Okay.
Either Marty St. Louis says nothing to him at all because he knows he doesn't need to, or he says, "Go be you, buddy." And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to see the Arber Xhekaj you expect to see tomorrow. I'll make that prediction right now, whether it leads him to making a bunch of mistakes because he tries to do too much. If it happens, it happens. But I don't think he's going to hold back at all. I think he's going to be exactly who
I hope you're right that he says, "Go be you." I hope you're right.
I think he will.
And so, I'll say this, Eric. I'll say this, Eric. Even though we all know they're in a rebuild, and there's not too many people that have the Montreal Canadiens making the playoffs this year, because of the way the Canadiens played, and I think gave up in the third in Ottawa. And played, and I think gave up in the third in Boston. That whole culture that you talk about and that they want to bring here, and this is a big game for them.
Yeah,
tomorrow
it's being
night.
tested.
This is a big game for them tomorrow night. It's the Ottawa Senators. There's rivalries there with some of their players. It's the proximity and.
Man, Arber looked good against those Belleville guys, though. I'm telling you,
they were laughing at the Canadiens players on Thursday night pretty good, and you could tell the Canadiens players were really, really frustrated. I mean, I have to see something tomorrow. I really have to see something. I have to. It's just one of those games where it's on the calendar. You got to see something.
Well, now
tomorrow we need a response.
But see how you're talking now, Tony. How many games things like this has happened? Now you're talking about those last two, but I remember a couple weeks ago, game against Buffalo, same thing happened. Teams are taking liberties when he's not there, and it's not just these two games.
That wasn't a couple of weeks ago, George. That was
Tony,
over a month ago, and it's
Tony.
Whatever it was in his absence.
But Tony, and Tony, you know what? We could talk about, and Eric, we could talk. There's many games we could talk about liberties that's been taken because he wasn't there.
George, we all live in Montreal, and I got to tell you, man, I have a ton of friends who have been texting me over the last number of weeks saying, "We need Xhekaj, we need Xhekaj, we need Xhekaj." So I'm I'm very confident in this prediction. You are going to see the Arber Xhekaj you expect to see tomorrow. Maybe he'll be even a little bit better.
Yeah, we can't wait to tune in. I'm excited
George,
to see that.
You want to give us a goodbye here? Is there anything you want to do with the camera before we say goodnight?
Okay, do you want me to stand up?
No, I'm good. I'm in the locker room enough.
No, I'm good. Hey, guys, if you asked me to, I'm not that crazy. I wouldn't.
No. You know what? I'm already traumatized in some way, shape, or form. I don't want to be scarred for the rest of my life.
You know what, Tony? I'll finish it with this.
Yeah.
It takes years to build an empire and one stupid decision to shatter it. If I get up, I shatter it, and I'm a cancel culture all over the place. So I'm not gonna get up.
George, when are you coming back from Seattle? I hope you get
He's
a
a
little
pretty smart guy. Smart guy.
I'm actually tomorrow. I'm going to Minnesota because on Wednesday I'm talking to the Wild.
Oh, really?
Oh, your winter coat with you.
Yeah. No, I got so many Seattle Seahawks winter coats and stuff. So I'm all good.
Tell their goalie that he's in my pool. If he wants to pitch like 5 or 6 straight shutouts, I'd be very, very grateful.
Okay, I will. Awesome.
Hey, who's winning the Super Bowl? I know there's 4 teams left there, but who do you have? Baltimore or Kansas City?
The
who do you have? Detroit or San Francisco?
The Ravens, forget it. The way they beat Houston, the Ravens are too good. I hate Lamar Jackson, but I have to give it to him. His team defensively, they're too good. Healthy.
Hate him? Why? Why would you hate him for? He's the most exciting player in football.
Because he's cocky. I like guys that are humble. The way he portrayed himself for the media and stuff, I don't like that. He's too arrogant, but I don't see how the Chiefs might be able to play with them. You got the Chiefs? I don't. Yeah, I like. I like Mahomes, but the Swifties, I'm sick of it. Now they're saying the Chiefs are winning because of the Swifties, because of Taylor Swift, not because of Mahomes and the team. Taylor Swift is making them win. I'm sick of it. So that has to end too. So I got the Ravens over the Chiefs. The other games, it depends. If Debo's playing, the Lions are done, and if Debo's not playing, the Lions are going to win. It all depends on Debo because 49ers offensively. Yeah, because without him offensively, they're not the same team. Because Brady just does Debo just little pass, doesn't do big pass, and Debo and McCaffrey pick up all the yards. You get 300 yards by doing little pass and stuff to those two players. So it depends if he's playing or not. But
Debo can catch and Debo can run. He's a pretty dangerous player.
But the Ravens in healthy, I don't know how. They're unbeatable this year if they're healthy.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Eric Engels of Sportsnet, George Laraque of BPM Sport. We'll talk to you soon. Tomorrow night, Awesome. It's the Montreal Canadiens versus the Ottawa Senators, because, of course, for those of you who missed it earlier this morning, Justin Barron was sent down to the Laval Rocket, and Mitchell Stevens was actually placed on waivers. There you have it. The Canadiens have loaned Justin Barron to the Rocket and placed forward Mitchell Stevens on waivers. That happened at 1:55 p.m. exactly. And then later on in the day, the Montreal Canadiens announced that they recalled defenseman Arber Xhekaj from the Laval Rocket, whose mom, Simona, was a very, very happy camper. You should have seen her on Twitter. She says, "I'm not going to cry. You're going to cry." She was pretty excited, and a lot of people were excited with her. She's not the only one. Good for Arber Xhekaj. He went down. He took it like a pro. He went there. He was a team player. He worked hard. He played well. Picked up goals. He picked up assists. He picked up points. He defended his teammates. He did a heck of a lot of good for Logan Mayu's game as well. He was a great influence on the players there. And I think he's coming back with that eye of the tiger. It sounds like it's going to be a good one between the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens. Tomorrow night, we'll be back. Same time, same place at 10 p.m. right after the hockey game. And hopefully we'll be talking about a Montreal Canadiens win and a big-time performance by the team, including and especially Arber Xhekaj. For all of you watching, thank you. If you liked it, like it, share with your friends. Comment SICK, S-I-C-K. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. For Shane Gaumont, I'm Master Control. Thank you to my SICK Army and my SICK community. I love you all. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the SICK Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The SICK Podcast. is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.